Hey folks, I'm glad to be back at this again because I've had to take a really long break from content creation, mostly due to finals and technical issues relating to how I produce content. So today I'm gonna be responding to a video by a guy who calls himself The Rational Male, in which he defends Steven Crowder for being a psychologically abusive piece of shit. It's not gonna be the super high quality, high production value videos I did in the past. That's coming later, so definitely stay tuned. But yeah, without further ado, let's get into it.
Yeah, the Duluth model of feminism is the basis for our laws, really, when it comes to domestic. The man is always the aggressor.
Alright, only 10 seconds into the video and we're already starting off with a bold-faced lie that actually won't be the most brazen example of Rollo's dishonesty in this video alone. The domestic project doesn't hold that men are always the in relationships. You're lying about what this model believes to make it seem worse than it actually is. The general theory underlying the Duluth model is that men use within relationships to exercise power and control, and in addition to this, men have been socialized in a patriarchy that condones male. The only person I can find who makes the criticism that the Duluth model believes female on male is either insignificant or non-existent is Donald Dutton, and in the work of his I've read, Dutton has literally never gave an example of a Duluth proponent saying this. Aside from this, what does anything in the Crowder situation have to do with We're criticizing Steven for psychologically Hillary, and the Duluth model primarily focuses on physical. There's been no evidence put forward that Steven Hillary. But wait, folks, it only gets more dishonest from here.
The aggressor. The man is always bigger. He's always more physical. He has testosterone. He has more of a capacity for. When women, they usually use a gun.
Most in America are done with guns.
They usually use they're usually more successful. If a woman is resolved to somebody, she'll do it. So it'll be one and done.
Yeah, because using a gun is a pretty reliable way of ending someone, as we've seen with recent developments.
Or we'll beat the hell out of each other, and then whether they do or they don't. But when women, it's much more efficient. For men, it could be. And so the Duluth model of feminism is erroneously so, based on the assumption of the male anger bias.
Could be. Most domestic is perpetuated by men, so it is.
The Duluth model of feminism is erroneously so, based on the assumption of the male anger bias. So when there's a domestic issue, they remove the man from the home. It's also
You literally just said men have more testosterone, so why are you now walking back your own hypothesis of why they tend to more? It's so pathetic that in your attempts to make guys out to be so alpha, you've ended up contradicting yourself.
Why women get sole custody, or like at least joint custody, primary custody, 86% of time in child custody laws.
Okay, this is 20% true on Rollo's part, but as we'll see, it's framed incredibly dishonestly. Shocker! So divorce courts did historically tend to rule in favor of men because in past decades, women were thought to be the more nurturing, parental, loving, kind, and empathetic gender, but because people wouldn't stop talking about it, they implemented some reforms to ameliorate this embedded systemic bias, so it's kind of laughable when you say implicit systemic bias doesn't exist against women. Anyway, after all these reforms were implemented in the divorce court system, the disparity still persisted, but this was due to the fact that men don't want the children most of the time in custody hearings, which is indicated by the fact that men are much less involved than women when it comes to raising their children after they've been born. Here's a nice article.
Men get it, 14%, 16%? Somewhere in there. I believe it's 86% is the latest number that I remember seeing. 86% of child custody is awarded to women, whether that's sole custody or that's primary custody. And again, based on the idea that daddy might not be the best person to be raising children. And the only thing that sort of offsets that is if mommy is a criminal or mommy is a drug. And then maybe.
No, it's because mothers on average spend twice as much time raising their children than fathers do, alongside doing roughly the same amount of work as the article explains.
Then they get joint custody. So the anger bias is definitely in the presumption that.
But there's no evidence that he's
Steven Crowder is the aggressor.
So why would the Duluth model be used?
Guys who have been in this position right here, where they're at their wits' end, they know it just doesn't happen like that. It is a process where it's like it's building over. She's nagging. It's
no, Rollo. Well, led up to the divorce was a long story, but the context of the video was that Hillary didn't want to feed the dogs because she was concerned that the medicine could be toxic to pregnant women. Not to mention, this was all while Steven was just smoking a cigar, sprawled out on his outdoor couch. For a self-described alpha, was it so much for him to just give the dogs the medicine at the time?
It's like a sexless marriage and everything else. It's like excuse after excuse, or it's complaint after complaint after complaint. There's zero.
The fact that you consider psychological a frivolous complaint is really telling.
Mentions this in a few cases here. Now, what's going to happen, and I'm just going to preempt here, what's going to happen is people are going to say, this is the manosphere. This is why this happened. I'm already seeing it. I'm seeing it from Brittany Venti, who looks like she's functionally autistic to begin with.
I do agree Venti is pretty dumb when it comes to most things, but the only people trying to convince the general public that Steven is the victim here is the manosphere.
But I'm seeing this from like Destiny, and not so much, like I don't want to harp on Destiny because he actually had a good take on this. Sorry, Destiny. You actually, I kind of agree with you on some of this. But like, there's a lot of people who right now want to say on Twitter and other places that the behavior that you're seeing from Steven Crowder is because he's been listening to guys like me, or he's been listening to guys like Fresh and Fit, or he's been listening to guys like Andrew Tate. That the Tate ideology, the Tate like viral meme, reprogramming has got into his brain, and that's why he's saying what he's saying, and he's not deferring to her authority. He's not deferring to like, oh, I'll do whatever you say. It's probably.
No, you're lying again. Nobody thinks the solution here is just to grovel at Hillary's feet and obey her every order. We're trying to get him to realize how he's been psychologically her and to arrive at a state where he can be a better person.
That is the result. Like, he's at his wit's end right now.
He has no wit.
He sounds to me like guys I know who either want counseling from me, or I see them in videos from TikTok, short form videos, where the guy is just getting down on it. He's pedestalizing the woman. After a while, that pedestalization becomes something of an enslavement for that guy, like a mental psychological enslavement for that guy. It's like codependency. He can't get away from her.
How's that the case when he literally hired his own divorce attorney first?
And his brand is based on having the perfect little marriage, having the perfect little blonde girlfriend who became his wife. They went to church together. They waited for marriage. They got married. Got married early by today's standards. They got married very early, 24 years old. I don't know. I think she might have been 22. That's very early for now. And remember, they got married.
Yeah, doesn't this demonstrate how much of a facade this whole TradCon it is?
I show you. In fact, he was very self-righteous about this. I'm going to read you an article where he's getting very self-righteous about this.
And how well did that self-righteousness age?
Anger bias.
Well, folks, I hope this video has shown you that not only does Rollo not understand the broader context in which these psychological accusations against Crowder occur, considering the fact that Rollo introduced some sort of narrative when there was none, but I hope this also shows you that Rollo will lie about feministic, sociological, legal, and leftist positions as much as he can, so he can provide as much reactionary fodder for his audience of teen incels and middle-aged divorcees. See you next time.